Hi guys, welcome back to the channel today. I hope everyone is having an awesome day today. Now today I did want to talk to you guys about Bethesda and what's going on with the studio. What's going to happen with the Elder Scrolls? When's it going to come out? Is there a new Fallout on the horizon? And some of the problems Bethesda has been having. We're going to cover all that in today's video, so stick around.
Dragonborn!
First, let's dive into Starfield. So the second anniversary for this game is coming up. They did tease that there's going to be some new DLC for the game. They have released some DLC for Starfield, but it doesn't seem like they're supporting it that much lately. And I think it's going to be one of those forgotten titles, which is very unfortunate. Now, to me, the core of the game is good, but it is mired in a lot of loading screens. And I found that the stories and stuff were just not that great. Now, that's my own personal opinion, guys. I found it was lacking flavor of the old Fallout games. To me, this is Fallout in space. I like the game, but it's not a game that I could spend hundreds of hours in. I did spend a good amount of time in it, but I did lose interest. I'm going to say pretty quickly for a usual Bethesda title. It's just one of those games. I wouldn't say it was a flop for Bethesda, but it's definitely not their best work. And you can really tell the writing team in Bethesda is not what it used to be. A lot of the people have left. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are still there, but there's just something missing about it. And you know yourself, Bethesda's not known for their writing, but this game is an example of very, very poor writing, in my opinion. Now, the gameplay mechanics, they were okay. The scenery was okay. Although my one gripe is most of the planets seemed very desolate and there wasn't a lot on them. And I totally get that. But jamming a bunch of extra stuff in the game just for the sake of jamming it in there kind of really hurt this game. I found there was a lot of, I would just say, empty space, which, yeah, I mean, it's in space, right? But you know what I mean? When there's games that have large voids and there's not a lot of interesting things in between stuff, it just makes for a not very engaging experience, in my own opinion. So let's talk game engines for a sec here, guys. So everyone knows that plays these Elder Scroll games and Fallout games, Bethesda uses the Gamebryo engine. It got updated to the Creation engine and then Creation 2.0. Now this engine is known for being buggy. It feels clunky. It looks dated. In my own personal opinion, I don't mind the look of these Elder Scroll games, the Fallout games and stuff. I will admit a lot of the scenery and stuff looks washed out. And I don't know if this is something that this engine is going to be able to overcome in the years to come, especially with new hardware constantly evolving. They need to get the graphics up in these games more. You look at a game like Red Dead Redemption 2 in an open world, and it looks fantastic. The detail is great. I don't believe that the Creation engine is going to be able to attain something like this. Bethesda's going to have to make a huge commitment here in the next few years on whether they stick with the Creation engine or they move on to Unreal 5 like a lot of other developers. Now, CD Projekt Red has already made moves. Some of these developers have done it. They've bitten the bullet. I think the problem with Bethesda here is their customer base is so used to the Creation engine that they're complacent with it and they will stick with it regardless, just because they love the Bethesda games. But if they want the new crowd, they got to have the bright and shiny stuff. It's got to look better, guys. It's just the way it is. If they do decide to switch engines, it's probably going to take them a couple years to get it up and running, get everyone in the studio familiar with it, and use it and build games. So given that they already have a history of long development cycles, this could really break the bank for them, and that's unfortunate. So it's a catch-22 here. Do they keep being complacent and using the Gamebryo Creation engine, or do they move on to Unreal and just bite the bullet? And you know how these studios are. They are under the umbrella of Microsoft now. They got to get these games out, so I don't foresee them moving over. I can see them doing some sort of hybrid maybe. I don't know, guys, but to me, at some point, they will have to move forward with Unreal 5. Is that going to come before Elder Scrolls 6 comes out? Highly unlikely. Sorry about Momo. She wanted to make a cameo here. But if you are Bethesda, guys, you have to understand their reputation is... You get down. Now you have to understand from Bethesda's point of view here, a lot is riding on the Elder Scrolls 6. You know, Starfield came out, it was so-so. Fallout 76 came out, again, it was a so-so game. They're all right games, and by most studios' success, I would say they were successful. To me, The Elder Scrolls is one of the most anticipated games and loved franchise in the business, and if they don't get this right, it's really going to damage their company. And I would say, given the track record of Bethesda in their past few games, I'm not too enthused about this game. I'm really worried that it's not going to have good writing. It'll probably look fairly pretty given the engine's limitations, of course. But I have a feeling it's going to be like Starfield, where you're going to get a lot of loading screens. It's going to be choppy and buggy. And I don't think this game will live up to the hype. And I honestly don't know if it possibly can live up to the hype. Now, you have to understand, when you release games like Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim, this is big shoes to fill, and if it's not a top tier game, then people are going to be left wondering, where does Bethesda go after this? You know, in my opinion, Skyrim was a good game. I don't think it was as good as Oblivion. That might just be my own personal preference. I like Skyrim. I played it a ton. It had lots of replayability. The fact that they milked it so much really left a bad taste in my mouth. You know, every year it was like they're making a new Skyrim up-res edition and bullcrap going on, when they really should have been focusing on the Elder Scrolls 6, in my opinion. All that being said, I'm going to remain cautiously optimistic that they may release something that's pretty good and has good replayability value. Time will tell on that. Now, in my own personal opinion, I believe Bethesda's become very complacent in the past few years. You know, the games that they've put out are not really what the fans want. I don't think people really wanted Fallout 76. I don't believe they wanted Starfield. You know, people constantly complain about Skyrim just getting updates instead of a new Elder Scrolls. You know, Fallout 4 was a decent game. The writing I found was not good. There's been no real news about a new Fallout. I have a feeling you'll see a remastered Fallout 3 before you see anything. And to me, that complacency has really hurt this company. Now, they did get gobbled up by Microsoft. I still don't think that's an excuse. To me, them pivoting and making Starfield instead of going all in on a new Fallout, or, you know, putting those resources towards the Elder Scrolls, really stupid in my opinion. Maybe they thought that Starfield would become a huge franchise like, you know, Fallout, Elder Scrolls. It won't, guys. It's going to die. It's going to be a single game. I don't think they'll ever make another one now. And I think at this point, Todd Howard's just been in the industry so long. Maybe he's shielded from criticisms, or he just doesn't care because, you know, everyone loves Todd Howard. He made these big games. But at this point, him making Fallout 76 and Starfield instead of the tried and true games that everyone wants, just boneheaded moves in my opinion, and I think he's a little bit out of touch with reality here. I think they can get out of this complacency. They just need to get back to making the games people want and making them good. Focus on these awesome single player games that you're known for, and the fans will come. Focus on these single player games that fans want. If you want to put in buyable DLC and stuff, do that to make extra money. I really don't understand the thinking of some of these execs at some point. Just get these games out, make sure they're good, people will buy them. It really is that simple. So we had some former devs speak out on these issues. The one former developer did say that once Starfield was in production, if the studio grew too much, and that feeling of you can kind of do
whatever lies at the end of this road will change humanity forever.
There was no more real choice in what they were doing. They were making these games all that sort of stuff. And that's what happens when these companies get too big. You have to understand, the studios were not big when they were making these games. I'd say there's probably 100, 125 people. And then they balloon as the games get bigger and they start doing more projects. And that's when they lose the soul of their studios. And I believe this is kind of what's happened to Bethesda at this point. And you also had another dev speaking out about how the game engine is holding the franchise back now. So we don't need to dive into that. I already gave you my thoughts on the Gamebryo creation engines here. They do have limitations. And while they work good for Bethesda games, I think at some point they're going to have to update those. And another dev did speak out about how the game engine is holding production back. and the games can't really move forward in a more up-to-date look because of the engine. And again, I'm not going to dive into that because we already talked about the game engine and its limitations, but they definitely are going to have to bite the bullet at some point and probably make a switch here. So my thoughts on what Bethesda can do to ensure that the Elder Scrolls, when it actually finally gets released, we're probably looking at 2027, is to do the following steps, and they have to make sure that there's actually a somewhat compelling story this time. Really, for me, peak storytelling for Bethesda was Morrowind, and then I'm going to say Oblivion after that. Skyrim, not so much. The story in that, I didn't find that great. I found some of the side quests and stuff, the stories were pretty good in, but the main overall story was just not that great. So if they focus on the storytelling, I think a lot of the other parts of the game will probably fall in line. They have to have interesting side quests. I know a lot of them are going to be fetch quests and filler, but you can still make them interesting. I think Oblivion really did this right. The side quests, they were compelling. There was some humor to them. Not everything was so serious about it. It was just an overall great experience. If anything, they should try to recapture the Oblivion experience. Not so much Skyrim, even though it's super successful, and even Morrowind, bring some elements of that back, but they need to make a game like Oblivion again. And you can see how popular Oblivion was when they remastered it. It did take off. Everyone loves Oblivion, guys. If they want to appeal to that super broad audience and bring the fans back, making a game that's kind of like Oblivion, you know, sprinkle in the other elements of Morrowind and Skyrim, can be a really awesome experience. I don't think they necessarily need to focus on the size of the map, but they need to focus on the contents of the map. Make it interesting, you know, have nice different cities, make everything pretty. It's not rocket science to make a good Bethesda game. I think they've just really lost their way since they've gotten so big. Now let's talk about Fallout for a minute here. I believe that they've probably initially started the new Fallout. They're probably working on it, whether they're spitballing ideas, locations, writing, you know, stuff like that. They're probably getting the ball rolling on that. I think they should focus on the Elder Scrolls and outsource Fallout to Obsidian again. And as long as Obsidian is willing to do this, I think they could have a real big hit on their hands and really bring the company back to where it used to be. Now, if you don't know, Obsidian did do Fallout New Vegas, and in my opinion, New Vegas is better than the other Fallout games. Fallout 3 was awesome, but New Vegas is better, and New Vegas was definitely better than Fallout 4. The writing was great, the stories were good. Yeah, the graphics were washed out. It was old and it looked good for its time. I really don't know anyone that didn't like Vegas and really doesn't think it was the best game of the Fallout series. And I think by doing this, they could catapult the company back on top again. They could really have an interesting and great Fallout game come out in the next few years. And they could also have a great Elder Scrolls game come out. Then they could start on a new engine, get some new projects going, and kind of reboot the company and get going with some new titles again. I really think that would be a win-win situation for the company. Again, they might not see it that way. I really don't know. But to me, it's a no-brainer having Obsidian doing the next Fallout game. They're an awesome studio. They make great games, and they're familiar with Gamebryo and creation, so I think they can do a really good job on it. And then you can prepare for the transition to Unreal 5. Anyone new to the channel, I'm a huge Bethesda fan. It's my favorite studio. I love the Elder Scrolls. Oblivion's my favorite game. I really want the best for the studio moving forward, and I hope they can come through with an awesome game here. I just have a lot of doubts that they will, just given the fact of what we've seen with Starfield, and if that's the best they have going at the moment, I'm actually quite concerned about the state that Elder Scrolls is in and what it's going to be like when it comes out. Now, as you know, Bethesda is under Microsoft's umbrella at this point, and they weren't shielded from the layoffs. I know there was a couple projects that did get canceled here. I know they are having employee layoffs, just like broader Microsoft employees are. So I'm going to expect that this is going to push back development on the Elder Scrolls 6 and Fallout and any other future titles. Now, you have to understand, Bethesda is a big company in ZeniMax right now. And given the amount of layoffs, I don't have a good feeling that these games are going to come out in a timely fashion. I believe they're all hands on deck for Elder Scrolls, and I would expect to see that probably in 2027, unless something happens and it gets pushed back. But a Fallout game, who the heck knows, guys. My perfect version of the Elder Scrolls 6, I would make it in the style of Oblivion, where you have this high fantasy setting, lots of castles, big cities. I thought that was the best backdrop for this game. And then for the outlying areas, yeah, you can sprinkle in some Morrowind and Skyrim type styles. And you have to make some of the quests quirky like Oblivion. I don't want the game to be super serious. I felt Skyrim was a little bit more serious than it needed to be. And you can see when they did update Oblivion, the fact that they put a lot of Skyrim elements into Oblivion, it made for a really good game. And I think if they keep doing that, they should be okay on this one. As for the inventory system, I preferred Oblivion style on that, even with the level progression screens and stuff. I like the Oblivion UI a little bit better. It was more of a classic design than Skyrim was. I'm fine either way with that. For me, it's more about the location, the storytelling, and the overall gameplay. So we'll see how that goes, but that would be my ideal version of this game. I'm sure it probably won't be anything like I'm expecting. But if you want to do some reading up on it, I would definitely do that. And yeah, hopefully they prove me wrong and Elder Scrolls 6 is awesome, guys. And on that note, I will see you guys later. As always, please like, comment, subscribe. If you have any input, let me know. And I will see you in the next one. Peace.